I'm André. I'm part of the documentation team of 3DS at Scale, which is a subsidiary of Dassault Systèmes in France. And I just want to stress that this presentation is an example of a migration from a CMS to a Doxa Squad solution. I'm not here to say that Doxa Squad is the universal solution to everything, but it was the solution for us, and I'll show you how and why. All right, so at first we are using a CMS which was Atlassian Confluence. In case you don't know what a CMS is, in short, it's a collaborative online tool for producing content. I could have said a documentation platform, in fact. I talked about Confluence, but there are other examples include Palibo, even WordPress, for example. So yeah, Confluence. So it's a wiki application with a WYSIWYG interface. WYSIWYG means that you're showing like in Word, for example. You can see when you bold something, you can see that it bolded, and you see that directly what you write in the final format. So it's rather practical at first. You write and you see immediately what it will look like in the final website. And Confluence for us was a sort of legacy choice. By that I mean that it was what was there before us, before I joined the company. So we used Confluence because that's what was there. And Confluence is a commercial application, so there are a set of features in it. And if you need more features, you just buy plugins, either from the publisher, Atlassian, or from third-party developers. So what was the issue with Confluence for us? I talked about WYSIWYG. It's a thing that's rather practical at first, but in fact, what's behind this WYSIWYG is an XML format, and the more you fiddle with it, and the more that can lead to what I call a tag soup. Basically, your XML tags that you don't see can be misordered, or there can be XML errors that you don't immediately see, since you don't see the XML, you only see the final format, and that can make editing really tricky. For example, if you have a complex bullet point list, that can be really tricky once a tag bug has been introduced. Once there's a bug, it's rather tricky to clean it up. Another problem for us was that our volume of documentation kept increasing, and we had like 1,500 pages. And Confluence is really practical when you have just a few pages to modify. But when you have over 1,000 pages, it becomes rather tedious. For example, just to do a mass find and replace, it's very difficult. Confluence by default, you can find and replace in a single page. But if you want to do that on your entire documentation, it's impossible by default. There are plugins to add this feature and others, but then you just add a layer of complexity. In fact, you have Confluence, and then you add a plugin which is basically a second software, a second application that you add, and you just add complexity, and you become dependent not only on Confluence, but also on the developers of the plugin. Yeah, so this conference meant for us that we just spent a lot of time on technical issues. We are basically struggling with the software instead of writing, in fact. And as a consequence, we kept accumulating what I call documentation debt. By that, I mean that our time was taken by chores on technical issues instead of us having time to work on the actual documentation. I mean. So that was a problem that kind of lingered with us for some time, and then at some point, I just had an idea, which was let's move out of Confluence. We are not as I said before, we used Confluence because that was the software that we had, but we didn't have to keep using it. In fact, if we wanted to move to change system, we could. So we started looking for other solutions, and we listed what we needed, what we really needed. Well, first, something that's not written here is that we wanted to have at least the same amount of features that we already had. Obviously, if you want to change solution, we will looking for something better, and we don't want to lose some of the features that we did have already. In addition to that, we wanted the usual tech writing features like content reuse, conditional text. Confluence has a limited feature for content reuse, but no conditional text, for example. We also wanted lightweight text format because Confluence had a rather simple format visually, and we didn't want to move to something heavy like another XML format or full-fledged data system or something. We wanted to keep things simple. And yeah, something that I didn't say is that Outscale is a cloud computing company. So we're working in software in IT, and so we have lots of developer and engineer colleagues, and we wanted to have features such as version control and integration with their sources of content in order to be able to integrate with them more easily. So as you can obviously tell, the solution for us was Docs code, and we chose a Docs.com application which is called Antora. Antora is a rather new Docs code application, and as a new application, it kind of benefited from the lessons of the more ancient systems. It's basically it's a Docs code application which was written for technical writers. So it was rather yes, it was easy to move toward it, and yeah, it was rather enjoyable, in fact, to move from Confluence to Antora. So Docs code as a whole, what did it mean for us? It meant and represented a lot of things, a lot of benefits. First, process benefits, because as I said, we are moving to something that versioning, branches, merge requests, all the kinds of stuff that developers do in Git. and it allows us to kind of harmonize and unify our documentation processes. There are also UX and branding benefits. By that, I mean that once we move out of Confluence, which is kind of a closed system, in Docs code, we have full control of the final website. We can customize it however we want, and in particular, we could harmonize it with the corporate website of AtScale, so that the corporate marketing website of AtScale and the documentation website of AtScale could finally have a common interface, a common visual theme that was compliant with our graphical charter. There are also a few financial benefits. We are not talking about millions of euros or something, of course, but Confluence, as I said, is a commercial application. So you buy licenses with Confluence, and you pay Confluence yearly. And the more users you have, the more licenses you need for Confluence and for the plugins of Confluence. But once we move to Antora, we enter a free open source ecosystem. So we don't have to pay licenses anymore. We just have free access to what the open source community has developed online. There are also some security benefits because unlike Confluence, which is a huge as you say in French, a huge usine à gaz, a huge system with lots of complexity. Unlike that, Antora produces a website which is pure HTML. So you don't have logins, passwords, databases behind it. Therefore, you don't have security vulnerabilities. You might have heard recently of a big vulnerability which has affected a lot of companies, which is Log4j or Log4j. And well, this vulnerability didn't affect our documentation website because we had moved on from Confluence toward a system which don't have this kind of vulnerabilities. And finally, we have some community benefits. As I said, we are moving to an open source system. So we have full access and we can leverage the work of the outside community. We don't have to rely so much on internal developers or outsourced developers. We can just benefit and also contribute, of course, to the work of the open source community. So just a quick slide on how we actually migrated from Confluence to Antora. Well, at the start on the left, we make an export of Confluence. So we extract HTML pages. And on the right, at the end, we want to have Antora files, which are in the ASCII format. ASCII is basically Markdown, but better, and to say. So in order to move from one format to another, there is something which is called Pandot, which is a format converter. But if you just use this converter, the conversion is rather is not very clean. It's like when you convert a PDF to Word or something. The result is subpar. So what we had to do was make a custom script. We wrote it in the Python programming language in order to enhance the conversion. Thanks to this script, we could automate a lot of cleanup work. But of course, we also have to manually check the files and clean them at the end. But when we clean up manually, we can detect things that we can then further automate by the script. There's a kind of feedback loop where if you notice that, for example, a notebox is badly converted, well, once you have noticed one notebox, you're not going to clean all the noteboxes manually. You're going to see what you need to do, what kind of final request you need to do, and then you make a script to automate the finding and the replacing of all the noteboxes, so that the script can do that for you automatically. So yeah, that was a project. This migration project was a lot of work, and we had some challenges. First, as we saw with the previous presentations, you do have to have something of a hacker's mindset, or at least passion for scripting and for programming, in fact, and for developer tools. Another challenge was that we had to work on the migration and, of course, the day-to-day work, which didn't pause, which kept going. And therefore, we had to really carefully plan the transition in order to not lose work, in order to keep documenting what's going into production while working on our future platform all at the same time. Just one slide to show you how our documentation set looks like now. Of course, you can guess it, but what's great is that it's really the same visual theme of our corporate website. It doesn't look like a Confluence. It doesn't look like a wiki or something disguised as a documentation website. It really fits the large scale visual charter. So yeah, that's the point where we are now. But we can still add a lot of features. What's next for us is to do all kinds of funny stuff, like automatic style guide. Gaspar has told us about it earlier this morning. We can also do things like automatic detection and correction of errors in code examples. As I said, we're a software company, so in our documentation, we have examples of code and commands and scripts from developers. And thanks to Doxa's code, we can automatically detect errors in them. We don't have to manually guess that there's a missing comma or missing colon here and there. We can also automatically update some of our data and variables from other sources. For example, if there are parts of our documentation which was just copy pasted from another source, well, we don't have to copy paste manually anymore. We just automate that import. And also other features like UX improvements, Matomo Analytics, which is an open source version of Google Analytics, basically. And all kinds of feedback features like the stars that user can click on the creation pages, or things like thumbs up or thumbs down. We can freely add all those things thanks to by just integrating open source scripts. In fact, yeah, and just in time, I think, for the conclusion. In conclusion, this migration was a very rewarding journey for us and for everyone. In fact, for the users, it means having a modern, state-of-the-art documentation site. For the company, it means that documentation all of a sudden becomes a valuable product. You're not seen as a necessary evil or boring part of the company anymore. You become something that has value and that can grow and that can keep adding value, including being a real public showcase for your company. For the employees, it means that developers and tech writers share the same world. You're really breaking a silo by moving to Docs as code in a software company anyway, because everyone shares the same tools and the same processes. It's really not about you moving to the world of developers. It's not about that. It's about really sharing a common world and common tools and processes. And of course, for you, there's a lot of professional growth to have because you gain skills that rather rare, in fact, on the market, especially in France. You really gain something and you stand out from the crowd, in fact. So, yeah, thank you. That's all for me. Have fun with the SAS code, I would say. And just as a last word, I just said that Artscale is hiring. So if you want to be part of our journey, you can join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, André. Tony asked a question. Thank you for your great presentation. And I was wondering if Antora offers an embedded search engine or if you use an API such Algolia. Also, do you translate your docs? And if so, how do you handle automation with translation?
Yes, Antora has an embedded search engine, which is called Lunar. And that's what comes by default with Antora. But you can also integrate something like Algolia, which is an external search engine. Yes, it's something that a lot of people want, so they have talked about it. There's no issue with integrating this stuff. For translation, well, we don't have particular automation with our translation processes. Basically, we have our documentation in English. We have for each English pages, we also have a French page, sorry, that we link the two, and then we for now we translate this in our text editor. But since it's just plain text format, you can easily import those files into CAT tools or translation platform. Yeah.
Thank you. Oana says, I love the visual, André. What was the most challenging part of the process once you started the migration? Thank you.
Oh, the most challenging part were what was in the slides. In fact, it's really you have to keep working. You have to work on this project, but you also have to keep producing the normal work that you're supposed to produce. So what's difficult is to really plan the two in order to not lose content. Since you're going to have at some point to really start writing new stuff in the new format, you then have to at some point you have to stop working on the old format, but you have to really inventory all the current work in order to not lose things. In fact, that's what was really hard. Well, another part that was hard was the migration script. That was also a huge work since, as I said, we have 1,500 pages. That was a lot of stuff to automate because obviously we weren't going to check all the pages manually.
Thank you, André. Last question from Beltran. Hello, Beltran. Does the transition to ASCII doc apply to all types of output exports?
All types of output exports. Well, in our case, our final documentation is a website, an HTML website. We don't produce PDF export, for example. So yeah, all our sources are ASCII doc files, and all we produce at the end is HTML pages. But with Docs as code, you can also produce PDF. It's not a constraint.
Okay, thank you very much, André.